Apple is about to charge you $200 more for an iPhone, and based on everything I've seen so far, most people are going to pay it. This is the iPhone 18 Pro Max, every confirmed spec, every credible leak, and one camera upgrade that might be the most significant thing Apple has done to a phone camera in years. We'll get there. But there's something else buried in these specs, one number that explains exactly why Apple feels confident raising the price. Stick around, because that number changes the whole conversation. Here's what's actually confirmed, what's highly likely, and what's still noise. Let's go. Start with the engine, the A20 chip. Apple is moving to TSMC's 2 nanometer process this year, and that word, nanometer, gets thrown around so much it's become meaningless. So let me give you the numbers that actually matter. Up to 15% faster than the A19, up to 30% more power efficient. That efficiency number, that's the one, because it connects directly to battery life, and we'll get there. But here's what makes the A20 genuinely different from every chip Apple has made before. Apple is packaging it using something called WMCM technology, wafer level multi-chip module. Translation: the RAM is now fused directly onto the same wafer as the CPU, the GPU, and the neural engine, not adjacent to it, on it. No silicon interposers sitting between them, slowing things down. Faster Apple Intelligence processing, smaller physical footprint inside the phone, which leaves more internal space for other components. Now, those chips are reportedly at least 50% more expensive to manufacture than the 3 nanometer chips in the iPhone 17. That cost is going somewhere, and Apple has already made very clear where. $1,399 for the iPhone 18 Pro Max, $1,299 for the iPhone 18 Pro. Those are the numbers being reported by IDC. The Wall Street Journal says the Pro alone could start at $1,399 because Apple's RAM costs have more than tripled. Counterpoint Research says the 1 terabyte Pro Max could be around $300 more expensive than last year's equivalent. Here's the context. Apple has already raised prices on iPad, on Mac, on AirPods. The iPhone was always next. It just took longer. Now there is one wild card. Apple is releasing the iPhone Fold this fall alongside the Pro models, a foldable iPhone. It's going to be very expensive. Some analysts think Apple could use the Fold to absorb some of the premium pricing pressure, meaning the Pro Max hike could end up smaller than $200. Could. I wouldn't restructure my budget around that possibility, but it's worth knowing it exists. Okay, this is the part. The main camera on the iPhone 18 Pro Max is expected to feature a variable aperture lens. Variable aperture on a smartphone. Let me explain why that matters. Every smartphone camera you've ever used has a fixed aperture, a fixed size opening that controls how much light enters the sensor. You cannot change it, it's locked. Variable aperture means you can manually adjust the opening, control overexposure in bright sunlight properly, not just digitally, control depth of field the way a real lens does, improve low light intake without just hammering the ISO. This has existed on mirrorless cameras for decades. On a phone, Apple would be doing it first at this level. That's the feature nobody's leading with, and it's the one that actually changes how photographers, real photographers, think about using a phone. On top of that, Samsung is reportedly supplying a new 3-layer stacked image sensor for at least one of the iPhone 18 Pro models. More responsive, less noise, higher dynamic range, and both the main and telephoto lenses may be getting larger apertures overall, meaning more light in regardless of the variable system. If even half of this arrives in September, the iPhone 18 Pro Max camera is a legitimate generational leap, not a spec sheet shuffle, a real one. Design-wise, this is not a redesign year. The iPhone 18 Pro Max keeps the same general silhouette, 6.9-inch display, triple rear camera, large camera plateau. The phone may be slightly thicker, around 9 millimeters, and slightly heavier at approximately 240 grams. That's up from 8.75 millimeters and roughly 233 grams on the 17 Pro Max. The reason? A bigger battery and a new vapor chamber cooling system. The camera plateau itself could be around 2 millimeters thicker to house the new camera hardware. Colors. Apple is reportedly testing a dark cherry red, closer to a deep burgundy with a purple tint than a bright fire truck red, alongside light blue, dark gray, and silver. Those four colors have shown up in the first dummy model leaks, which usually track closely with final production. Now, the dynamic island. Leaker Ice Universe says it could be 35% narrower, down from 20.7 millimeters to around 13.5 millimeters. That's a visible difference in everyday use. Chinese leaker Digital Chat Station says the smaller dynamic island was delayed. Not this year. iPhone 19, two leakers, two completely different answers. One of them is right. We find out in September. Battery. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is expected to carry a 5,567 milliamp hour battery in the US Malwa, up from 5,088 milliamp hours on the 17 Pro Max. That's nearly 500 milliamp hours more. Combined with the A20's 30% efficiency improvement, this should be the longest lasting iPhone Apple has ever shipped. Not incrementally, noticeably. On the connectivity side, the C2 modem arrives this year, more capable than the C1 and C1X, potentially supporting 5G satellite connectivity, meaning actual internet access over satellite when you're off the grid, not just emergency SOS, third-party apps, Apple Maps, photos, actual usable connectivity anywhere. One complication: the C2 may not support millimeter wave 5G in the United States. If that's the case, Apple may use a Qualcomm modem domestically and the C2 internationally. That's an interesting situation for a company that spent years building its own modem to own the stack. Worth watching when the fine print drops in September. Here's the thing that's getting buried in every leak roundup. Apple is splitting the iPhone 18 launch this year. iPhone 18 Pro and Pro Max, September 2026, as always. iPhone Fold, also fall 2026. iPhone 18 base model, spring 2027. Read that again. If you want a new iPhone this fall and you're budget conscious, Apple is not offering you a cheaper option until next spring. It's Pro or wait 6 months. That's a deliberate decision, and it's worth factoring into your thinking well before September rolls around. So, should you be excited about the iPhone 18 Pro Max? Genuinely, yes. The A20 is a real architectural leap, not a marketing bullet point. The variable aperture camera, if it ships, changes smartphone photography. Battery life should be the best this phone has ever had. Should you be nervous about the price? Also, yes, $1,399 to start is real money, and you need to be honest with yourself about where you're upgrading from. iPhone 15 or earlier, the case is strong. Almost every spec is a significant jump. iPhone 16 Pro Max, the camera is better, the chip is faster, but your current phone is not slow. iPhone 17 Pro Max, unless the variable aperture camera specifically matters to you, this one probably isn't your year. Here's where I land. The iPhone 18 Pro Max is shaping up to be the most technically ambitious iPhone Apple has shipped in 3 or 4 years, but Apple is pricing it to match that ambition. Whether that trade-off makes sense for you, that's the question I can actually answer properly in September when I have one in my hand and real tests to show you. Until then, I'll see you when the next leak drops, and based on how this cycle is going, that might be tomorrow,